I'm attorney Ben Crump, along with attorney Fu Zimmerman from the DiCello Law Firm. We have the honor of representing the family of Jalen Randle. Present here with me today is his mother, Tiffany Rochelle, his daughter, Jayla, his father, Warren Randle, his stepfather, Tony Rochelle, his brother, Avian Rochelle. And attorney Arthur Reed is also present here. We came to just make a demand now that we have seen the video. Everybody has seen the video with their own eyes, and they have heard what the officer said with their own ears. If for some reason you have forgotten, it was Miss Tiffany, Jalen's mother, who reminded me exactly what the officer said to tell us his mentality even before the encounter happened. He said that he isn't going to leave the neighborhood. He's not going to live to make it out this neighborhood. Is that correct, Tiffany? He is not going to live to leave this neighborhood. And so he said that even before the encounter happened where he unjustly killed Jalen Randle. But it goes even before that. In 2019, he was indicted for aggravated assault for using excessive force against another black citizen here in Houston, Texas. And so it begs the question from Mr. Randle, Jalen's father, why was he even on the force anyway at this time? We just came from D.C. with the George Floyd executive order that said it would be public record as the charges of excessive force against officers. You have to wonder, if the executive order was in place and the Houston leadership was following it, would he have even been on the force to shoot Jalen's father in the back of his neck, killing him? But that tells his mentality. What he said. The third thing is we know he shot him in the back of the neck, and then he dragged him and put his knee in his back, which is consistent with what we heard on that audio tape. He's not going to live to make it out of this neighborhood. And that's what happened. So we are calling for the police department, HPD, to terminate Officer Pavette immediately based on his horrific history of excessive force against minorities, against black people. I mean, he went from excessive force to deadly force. How many more people have to die before you terminate them? How many people have to die, forgive me, before he does excessive force again? We're calling for State Attorney Kim Ogg. You know his history. You saw the video. Charge this officer for the unjust killing of Jalen Randle, who was running, going away from him. No reason to shoot a person going away from you. No reason. You're going to hear from his father, hear from his mother. Then we're going to try to take some of your questions. Hopefully the liquid sunshine will dissipate and you can get to your questions. Right now, his father, Mr. Warren Randle.
Good morning. First of all, I would like to say, if anyone has ever lost a son or a child, anything like that, you start to look for reasons. You start to look at words and what they mean. I even looked up what body cam meant, and body cam meant an instrument or a tool used mostly by law enforcement to bring transparency and to expedite legal activities. It seems like the only time that body cam footage or body cam seems to be useful to the police is when it benefits them. It never benefits the other person. You have to wait 30, 90 days.
Her name is Jalen Randle. This is Jalen's daughter. And it really, I'm really struggling with this whole situation where this baby will go without her father. Mainly, this officer made a statement. And his statement was, he will not leave to live this neighborhood. He will not live to leave this neighborhood. And I'm focusing on that because he had a motive. And that motive was to kill my son. He did exactly what he said. He did exactly. And my son did not. He did not leave. He did not leave, or did he live? And I'm devastated. I'm angry. And for no one to come out to say anything to us is absurd to me. My second thing that I would like to speak about, I don't want her to grow up not knowing that we fought this fight that we are fighting. We wasn't expecting this. We didn't know that this was gonna happen. But at the end of the day, this baby right here, we have to raise without a father because of his intent on what he wanted to do. And I am furious. I am furious. I've cried all I can cry. Now I need to tell y'all that I am mad. And I need to get justice from my child.
Amen.
And I need everyone that want to take a stand to help us get justice for Jalen Randle.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. And it really comes down to this unjustifiable action. I think, as Warren Randall said, the reason they're trying to lie on Jalen and make him to be some violent criminal, even though he's never been convicted of a violent crime, is because they're trying to justify this violent act, this unjustified violent act against him by a violent police officer that has been charged with aggravated assault previously. It's pending. And so I understand these broken-hearted parents, this grieving family, when they say, why was he even on the force at this point after he beat that man to smithereens? I mean, you have to look at the picture, and a lot of you all have the picture of the person he assaulted and battered. 2 bloody eyes, bloody nose, bloody lip. It was like unconscionable what he did to that guy. And that told you the mentality of the officer. Even before Tiffany, we heard his words. Think about that, y'all. Think about if this your child and a police officer is coming, somebody who's supposed to protect and serve, supposed to respect the rule of law, and they come and say, he's not going to live to leave this neighborhood. Let that sink in. And so it is very consistent as he shoots him in the back of the neck that he then would drag him on the ground like Mr. Warren said and put his knee in his back. Is that what we want to see from our officers? A pattern of excessive force? No humanity for a man who is obviously wounded severely, if not fatally, because you shot him in the back of the neck. And this is Houston, the home of George Floyd. You're talking about putting knees in unarmed people's back. Haven't we learned that? How many more people have to die? And lastly, I agree with Mr. Randle. You know, leadership needs to be talking about this injustice. Not just enough to talk about George Floyd that happened in Minneapolis, hundreds of miles away, but we're talking about what happened right here in the backyard of your authority. Jalen Randle did not deserve to be killed unjustly by this killer cop. He did not deserve it. We'll take your questions.
And we know that most of these cases do eventually go to a grand jury. Can you talk about just the next steps legally and what you guys are planning to do?
Yes, ma'am. The family is expecting to meet with Kim Ogg, the state attorney, and expecting for them to make a strong case to the grand jury to get some charges brought. Mr. Randle thinks it should be murder charges, but we will respect whatever the state attorney feels they can prove, because we got eyes. Common sense tells us that if one of us shot somebody in the back of the neck, we would be charged. It's like Tiffany said, why is he above the law? Why is he above the law to say that he's not going to live to make it out of the neighborhood alive, and then he kill him, but yet he's not charged? What is it about this officer that gets so many slaps on the wrist, despite how many people are harmed by his actions? So we expect to do that, and then we.
Is there a timeline on that at all, or?
Well, I don't know. It's like Mr. Warren said, you know, body cam video is supposed to be something that is an instrument of transparency. When you see it, then you should go ahead and act. Like, if that was one of us caught on video doing that, how long will it take for them to charge us? But when it's the police, they say, oh, we got to go through this exhaustive investigation. Well, we just see that they don't do that in our community. It shouldn't be two justice systems. We have a white officer kill a black person, we have to take forever. But when a black person is accused of anything with no evidence, we're charged immediately. So hopefully it will be sooner rather than later. But that is a question for State Attorney Kim Ogg.
Has DA Ogg agreed to meet with the family?
Yes.
Have you heard anything from HPD or the mayor's office or DA Kim Ogg's office?
Not at this time. The family hasn't heard anything from anyone, correct?
No. But there is a meeting, but the DA's office has communicated.
Right.
That eventually they intend to meet.
Well, they welcome the meeting with the family, so we intend on meeting with them. But, you know, really, what you want to hear from the DA's office is that we're going to charge this officer for these unjustifiable actions. That's what we want. We understand that, you know, there's another family who alleged that he committed aggravated assault on them. So people are coming forward saying that this officer had a propensity to engage in excessive force against black people.
Are you pursuing any other type of litigation
Yeah,
as well?
yeah, we plan on bringing a civil lawsuit on behalf of the estate of Jalen Randle because his family, especially his daughter, she's never going to get her father back. And so you have to try to have some measure of accountability for her. You all have children. What happens if the police unjustly kill you? What would you think your child is entitled to? Well, whatever you conclude, then this black family expects the same. We don't want you to devalue us because the color of our skin. We don't want you to marginalize us because the color of our skin. What we seek is equal justice under law.
Who are you filing the civil lawsuit?
I was-
Have you named the dollar amount?
Now, obviously, it'll be a civil lawsuit against the Houston Police Department on behalf of the state of Jalen Randle. And it will be, there's no amount that can replace this father for his daughter. So we're going to ask that any and everything that she is entitled to, that she gets. Are there any other questions?
Just the reaction you guys had when you found out that the officer had already been indicted. How did you make this even tougher?
Warren, you want to step to the mic?
Well, what made it tougher, even, let me put it this way, in America, the biggest pastime in America is the NFL, correct? What would happen if an NFL player got busted using drugs twice? He would get kicked out the league, can never play again, his pension get cut. How do you think we feel if somebody got murdered? That's how I feel.
Yeah. You want to say anything on that, Tiffany? How you feel about knowing about his history?
When I viewed the history, I instantly say, wow. It brought something to me as far as I can't believe that this happened to our family. Mm-hmm. I've seen it before, but it just didn't register until I read the whole story. And I just feel as though justice has to be served due to what he has done in his past. They looking at everything and anything of anyone else's past, so why wasn't his past important to get him off the force or to even reinstate him? I mean, I just don't understand why was he even on the force? Why did he get back on the force?
Yeah.
This should have been an open shut case to where he was taken off the force, but this it really amazes me on how we conduct the business of Houston, Texas.
Well, and it really speaks to the larger national implications. I often talk with Tesla Figueroa, our political consultant, and we talk about the effect of this executive order and the fact that you need a database who shows or details the acts of excessive force by police officers. We know not too far from here and near Galveston, Texas, Joshua Feast was killed. And that officer had killed another black man prior to shooting Joshua in the back. But yet he was just allowed to move and come to the other force because there's no documentation of when the police officers commit injustices. But they were, as Mr. Randle said, that's part of the playbook. After we assassinate the person of color, let's assassinate their character. I mean, we saw that with every black person who the police has killed. They don't talk about this instance. They didn't go back and try to find out what happened when he was 16 years old.
I'll get with
to justify why you shot him in the back. And so the larger issues have to be addressed and I believe that the Houston leadership will address them based on their pattern. I expect the leadership in Houston to do for Jalen Randle the same actions they took after their native son George Floyd was killed. They took a lot of proactive actions to try to say we want to deal with the problem head on. And so this ain't Minneapolis, this Houston, Texas. We want you to deal with it head on. And I am thankful that Kim Ogg has always been willing to meet with families, and her office has had a history of charging officers who kill black people unjustly. We don't want her to change from that now. Continue to do equal justice, Kim Ogg. That is what this family, and especially this little girl, is expecting you to do.
I have a question for Mr. Randle's parents. I know that Jalen was really active in the Pleasantville community, and that Pleasantville is a really tight-knit neighborhood where families have, been there for generations. I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about the response that and the support that you've gotten from the Pleasantville community.
Talking about Pleasantville.
Yeah, Pleasantville is one of the most historic black neighborhoods in the city of Houston. Jalen was very active, and he helped a lot of people in the neighborhood. We've got tremendous support from his friends, with really his brothers. It's like a brotherhood. They've been very supportive, and also it's been an eye-opener for these kids. These kids see that can happen to them also. Matter of fact, I just had a conversation with a kid that had 2 children also, and I had to tell him, I said, you know what? Make sure you take plenty of pictures of your sons, because guess what? If you black, it's no guarantee you're gonna make it home at the end of the night. All I have left is pictures of my son. How would you like that? This is terrible.
On yesterday, the lead story was that the FBI was at a bonding company because they were taking minimal amounts on high bonds and letting repeat offenders back on the street. We have to put that same energy on these repeat abusive cops and murderous cops, and the FBI should be investigating them as well. So we cannot let the criminality of the police outweigh that of the citizens and they get away free. So we have to look at how we keep putting these killer cops back on the streets and these abusive cops back on the streets, the same way we're looking at how you're letting these repeat criminals on the street. These are criminals as well.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Reed, and that's a great point. A criminal act by a citizen is no lesser than a criminal act committed by a person with a gun and a badge. We expect equal justice. We thank you all. We will report to you after we meet with the state attorney, and hopefully the city leadership will reach out to the family to say we acknowledge the optics here. The fact that this officer said, and I quote, he's not going to leave this neighborhood. And then within a matter of minutes, he shoots him in the back of the neck. He then drags him, and then he puts his knee in his back. And it is consistent with what his words were, which we believe tell you what his mentality was. When somebody tell you something, take their word for it the first time. And that's what he said. He's not going to live to leave this neighborhood. Thank you all.
This is Rochelle and
Spell that name.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. If y'all could spell your names, everybody who spoke.
Tiffany, Tiffany, Rochelle, Rachal.
Warren Randle, Warren Randle, Randle. Thank you.
Arthur Reed, Arthurreed.
Yes.
Thank you. Just hold it there, please.
Got it, Chop.
What does that show right there? Can you just explain what that is?
Yeah. This is a diagram from the independent medical examiner who conducted the autopsy on Jalen Randle after he had been shot by the Houston Police Department officer. And what it shows you is that he was shot in the back of his neck. He went from the center of the head and showed that this was the entry wound of the bullet that took him down. And once he was on the ground, the officer then took him by the arms and dragged him and then put his knee in his back, not offering him medical assistance, which Tiffany Rochelle, Jalen's mother, says is completely consistent with what he said before he shot her son. He won't live to leave this neighborhood.
Do we have permission to use these photos here?
Yes, absolutely. And press at bencrump.com has some photos of Jalen Randle and his family, as well as with his daughter. Thank you all. Hopefully, it won't be justice delayed. We see the evidence, we heard it. We got audio and visual. How long will it take until they arrest the officer for killing Jalen Randle? How long? Yeah, that's true. Shot to the back of the head.